I have with me a special guest, and her name is Amanda Dilday. And Amanda is going to be teaching for the first time at the Mid Atlantic Women's Herbal Conference this September. And Amanda, I've never met you in person. I've heard about your work, and you reached out to me with some special things that you wanted to share with the women at our event. And I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about who you are. I'm wondering if you could just start our little session here today with, letting people know your story, who you are, and how you came to be where you are today.
Okay. Well, my name is Amanda, as you've already said. I'm originally from East Tennessee, and when I was little, I loved nature. I loved the plants. And I was very drawn to fairy tales and fairies and myths, but it was communicated to me pretty quickly and effectively that was a little bit too much imagination, a little bit too much pretending. That wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to be acceptable. So I took quite a detour. I actually made a conscious decision in junior high that if I was going to survive, some things needed to change. And so I put away certain clubs and certain activities, and I survived. Cheerleader, homecoming queen, I made it. But I've thought about how, my true self didn't make it, barely survived that period. So I became an English major. I became a pastor's wife of a conservative evangelical church, a small one. And that's really where I spent most of my adult life. But during that season there, I got very sick. I had, after 3 healthy children, I had 7 consecutive miscarriages in like a 3.5-year span. And I had all sorts of other physical symptoms too. And I wasn't well. But of course, most people have a similar story where you go to traditional, oh, sorry, my cat is knocking. I'm going to do that. And you go and they tell you, you're fine, your blood work's fine, it's a phase. And I thought people don't go through phases where you lose, 7 babies in a row. So I started to look into alternative forms of care. And it led me to the plants again, and also to acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. And of course, that brought in also life changes and food changes and yoga. And so it was sort of an awakening for me, really. Miscarrying those babies and moving through that. And I remember getting Rosemary Glad stars. I don't know if it's still like distance learning, correspondence anymore.
Yeah, no, she still does. Yeah, both ways. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, so I got that, and it was sort of my first, dipping my toe back into the things that I had liked when I was small. And I remember the first lesson was on Mullen, and I just had this sense of, I remember this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I remember. But this is so funny with your first question. Tell us about yourself. The first question in that class was, tell us about yourself. I couldn't do it. I did not do a single other thing in the class. I did not turn in another assignment. I could not get past that question. I didn't know how to answer it, which some people would say, well, just put you're a pastor's wife, mother of 3, whatever. But I didn't feel like it was answering the question. There was like a journey that needed to happen.
You had forgotten.
Say that again?
You had forgotten?
Yes, I had forgotten. Who am I again? Because everybody's been telling me, and I'm not sure that's the right answer. And then I was attending births as a midwifery student and a support person, and I became really burnt out attending the births. I had some very difficult births that I attended, and I just thought, I don't think my heart and body can do this right now, along with my own losses. And about that time, I learned of an herbalist that lived 30 minutes from me and had for, over a decade, and had a school. Teresa Boardwin, I don't know if you know her. She's in Rappahannock County. Boardwin, or Teresa Boardwin, with Green Comfort School of Herbal Medicine. And I found her. She had like a foundations program, a 9-month foundations program where you could start. And I just called her up and said, Teresa, I'm so tired of people. I need to come hang out with the plants. And I didn't really even know what I was doing. But I told somebody yesterday, I was talking about how younger women that are going through transition, we could really use some older women that have gone through transitions and not just gone through them, but engaged them, you know, and done the work, not just denied them or barreled through them. And I remember telling this friend, when I showed up at Teresa's yurt, I was like, hey, I'm just tired of attending difficult births. I want to spend some time with the plants. And, you know, what's the big deal? I'm just going to learn how to make myself some tea for when I have a cold. But I know from things Teresa said and the relationship we've had since then that she was looking at me thinking, oh, dear one, you're in your early 30s. You have 3 small children. You're a conservative pastor's wife, and you're showing up here. Like, something's getting ready to happen to you, you know? And so that's how I came into it, was through the loss with the miscarriages and needing to heal my body, but also needing to heal my soul, like myself. And I did. I was, I guess I don't know how to word it, restored to health, made well, you know, balanced again. And I did go on to have 3 more children. So and they were lovely births, and I'm a much different mother. So I guess that answered both questions. You know, I'm an herbalist, I'm a mom, I'm a former pastor's wife. And that's how I came to the plants. And then since that started, that journey that I didn't even know was beginning and what was going to happen, then that's when I began to remember the abuse from my childhood once I began working with the plants. I think that's part of why they were calling, like not just walk this path and offer it to others, but you need some plants, you need some healing, you need to wake up yourself. And so in that work with healing from those things myself, then I also became an author, and I wrote my book, Flowers for a Girl, Plant Medicine and Sexual Trauma. And it was so curious because ever since I was small, like I knew I was going to write a book. Like second, you can't even write like a sentence, but I knew I'm going to write a book. And it's curious to me now because that's the peak of when those things were happening. And when I look back, I think that my body was like, and my mind and spirit, I can't say anything right now. I can't use my mouth, but like someday I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to write my book. And so over the years, like with miscarriages and adventures in the church, because you can have some adventures, people, you should write about this. You should write about that. And I was like, no, that's not it. That's not it. Mm-hmm. One day, right before I began remembering, I hadn't thought about writing a book in forever because I'd been a mom of small children. I'd been a pastor's wife. You just kind of just start to like wash dishes and fold clothes and forget about doing anything else. Yeah. Driving home from the grocery store with a van full of groceries, not even thinking about any of those things. And then clear as a bell, I just heard, you are going to write a book, like spirit. And then I ended up remembering, and in the middle of remembering, I was and going to do body work and energy sessions. I was recording all of it because it was amazing, like what the plants were showing me. And then one day I was like, Amanda, like this is the book, you know? And so I went from having forgotten it to doing it. And so I've written the book, and I've also stepped into my role, my path as a herbalist. And more than that, that seems like such a simple word now in some ways. And so now, along with being all of those things, I teach and I offer consultations here, and I work with the land. And recently I became an ordained minister. So I'm too. That was fun. I'll have to talk about that. Plants made that happen. I decided if I was a former pastor's wife, there's more to it than this, but suddenly I get ordained and I'm like, hey, we're like on an even playing field. So I don't know if that helps some tell a little bit about who I am and how I got here.
So is your work now primarily with women who have experienced sexual trauma, or with women in general, or with anybody?
Well, my practice is open to anybody. I'm very thankful right now to have 2 men in my Embodied Herbalism 9-month series that's happening right now, I think there needs to be more men. But right now, I would not say that my practice is primarily for women who have experienced sexual trauma. That's not how I package it or present it. But what I'm finding is that the people who find me, when we begin to go over the intake form, or we begin to just talk and they tell their story, it often comes out in conversation that that is one of the roots of how they've come to where they are. But I offer it to anyone, and I feel like the people that I draw or the people that come are people who are ready to, as some of my friends have said, you should have a warning label on your consultations. Because what seems to be happening is people come and it's not like, I don't have this rash anymore, or I've had improvement, with these autoimmune symptoms or whatever. It's like enormous life changes, like leaving a job or a partner or moving. So I feel like somehow the space that I'm holding is for change, people that are ready to change, and also to engage with the plants, not only on a physical level, but a spiritual and energetic level, and are ready to like connect back to nature and land and spirit in a way that all of the physical ways that the plants help us are there, but we just drop a little deeper. So I don't know if that's good to say my consultations of whatnot needs warning labels. That might like
yeah, no, I've heard that. Well, I think that just highlights that so many women really have experienced sexual trauma to some degree. Whether it was physical or emotional abuse.
Yeah, I don't want to say all, but sometimes I lean that way because think of sexual trauma or sexual abuse as being like the most egregious of those ways of being violated. But honestly, I feel like just living in our society, experiencing it with the way that women are portrayed or talked about or treated, and then also just a lot of our ancestry, just holding a lot of history also in our own bodies. So sometimes I just am beginning to wonder if in some way, even if it's, I don't even know if this is the right word to use, mild, and I'm a more mild way, or indirect way, it's not a part of most of our pictures, and stories, the root of a lot of what's happening around us.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you have an embodied herbalism 9-month program. What exactly does embodied herbalism mean? I don't think that's a term. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Yes, it was a lot of work to come up with that term. I had to go away and sit in a cabin for 3 days at the winter solstice to come up with that. So it sort of flowed in. But, people use these words like holistic herbalism, and I don't even know all the words that, people use. And it fits how they're presenting the plants or how they want to present them and the image or whatnot that they're wanting to put forward. But what I was so interested in was like learning how to be the medicine, like to learn the plants, or maybe even just one, in such an intimate way that you can be it for another person. And so I think about like, maybe rose being, an anti-inflammatory or an astringent or, an affinity for the reproductive system or, some basic things about rose. And so we think, well, how can I be that to somebody else? But often, a lot of times what's happening to us physically is rooted in something emotional and spiritual and energetic. And what we often need from those plants is not only what they offer us physically, but what they're offering us energetically and spiritually and emotionally. And so my desire was that I and people that would come to the class would connect with plants in such a way that you can embody it. You can sit with another person and you can give that medicine, like in the way that you talk and the words that you use or your manner towards them, how you make them feel, how you touch them. If, they're okay with you like placing your hands, on their arm or their shoulder, and just learning to be it. I don't know if that's explaining that very well. So we spend a lot of time in the classes with the plants. Like I kind of feel like I do teach, I do talk, but I also feel like I'm just a facilitator holding space. Because I'll tell some of my stories. I will tell some clinical information, practical information about the plant or plants that will be with that day. But then we taste them and we sit with them and we listen and then we share. And so I also feel like I'm just holding space for people to connect with the plants and receive the medicine they need to receive from the plant after, I've shared and offered what I've been given. And it's so lovely because I've learned so much in my classes from the people and what they share. So we talk about, body systems and herbal actions and those sorts of things as a foundation and a structure so that we can move forward. That's one of the things I'd love to just say. Teresa, my teacher from Green Comfort School of Herbal Medicine, was so good at. She laid a good foundation. Here are your words. Here are your systems. And now you have what you need to do what you can do if you're not able to intuit, or know what questions you need to ask. You can have this general framework here to work with. And then you can just sort of bounce off of it. Always go back and have that foundation, have that structure. She's excellent with that. And then she's so lovely to let me go off and be whatever it is, that I have become. So that's what we do. And so far it seems to have gone well. People are definitely connecting with plants and nature, and I see them becoming medicine. And what's so lovely that I'm so thankful for is that so many of them have become medicine to me. They've embodied certain medicines and plants. And it's also a place where in connecting with the plants and becoming the medicine, what it also gives space for, what I very much encourage and I ask people is, what's your medicine? So at first they're thinking, well, am I rose? Am I hawthorn? But really it's more like, how do you give medicine? Do you give medicine through story? Do you give medicine through song? Do you give medicine through touch? We all can connect with plants and nature, but there's an infinite amount of ways that we can then offer it to other people. And I have one student, friend, client who's definitely music, and I'm getting chills even thinking about her. She embodies these plants, and then she goes out and she writes children's songs, and she sings for children in the community, and she has a bluegrass folk band that she sings in and with for adults, and she's just spilling out plant medicine everywhere, and people don't even know it. She's embodying the medicine. So that's what we do. I enjoy it. I love it. We also do land work, connecting with land, connecting with elements, animal medicine. We just sort of go.
So what is your goal for the outcome of the 9-month program?
Yes, so I have told people, if you're looking to come to me to feel like at the end that you're now prepared to go, be a clinical herbalist, we'll have to get together, and I do this, and you'll be an apprentice, and we have more conversations geared towards that. But for the 9-month first year embodied herbalism class, my goal is that the people that attend will feel like that they have connected back to nature and spirit and to themselves, and that in the class they will find whatever healing it is that they need, because that's what's been happening. People show up and really there was something that they needed to start working on. And so my desire has been that at the end of the class, whatever work they were needing to do at that time, they'll feel like they've done it or they've made good progress. And then at the end of it, they're able to walk away and say, I am medicine. I can be medicine. And this is my medicine. And then go out and figure out how they're going to, put that out into the world. I just have this real desire that at the end of the 9 months class, and this may seem abstract to some, but it's real to me, that people feel more whole, more wholly themselves, and they're able to embody their own body and so also embody medicine. plants and a way of loving and being in the world so that they can interact and connect with others. So connect to plants, connect to yourself so that you can go out and like connect to the larger world. So if you're coming to me to learn like really detailed information on the constituent, I have some lovely friends and teachers that are the place to go for that. But it's not where I'm at or how I move through the world.
So you're a lot about remembering, it sounds like, if we were going to put one word to maybe your
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah, that comes up so much when I'm talking to people or when I'm writing is remembering, like remembering who we are, remembering what the world is. We have just completely forgotten like what is out there and why we're here. I had a student, this is so lovely. He's one of the guys. So he writes to me the other night and he's like, what is happening to me? You know, I go out into nature tonight and it's like this magical fairy tale and it's dark and I don't want to leave it. And there's deer everywhere. And, you know, and so he has this experience in this sort of wilder place here. And then he goes home and he doesn't want to go inside of his house yet. He's like, I wasn't ready to break the spell yet. So he sits down on like the porch and he notices there are frogs there. Yeah. And he says this, he watches the frogs catching the insects on their tongues. And he was like, we've forgotten that frogs do this. We've forgotten. We're not watching, we're not observing, we're not present, we're not in it. And if any of us even know it anymore, we read it in a book. It's forgotten. And so for me, it's interesting too, because I'm sitting here in this house. It's a new home that I live in that has its own lovely story. And this house used to be in a certain location. It was built like around 1870. And then the place where it was going to become like a floodplain or a flood basin. So they either destroy it or move it. And the people loved it so much that they numbered the boards and then they moved it to this location and rebuilt it. Wow. Such a lovely story with this house. And then when I moved in, I'm trying to connect with the house. Like it's drawn me here. I'm here for a reason. I want to partner with it. And then suddenly I had this realization, because it often happens wherever we live, land or house, like there's similarities. We need to heal each other, you know, and offer medicine to each other. And I realized, oh my goodness, I was somewhere else. I had to be completely taken apart. I've been completely put back together. You know, I now need this like tending and, you know, care. So that's so lovely. I'm so thankful that you said that. I write it everywhere. I say it all the time. Do like remember who you are and your connection to the divine and really like the beauty and magic of the world around us and our place in it. And if we're able to remember that and remember ourselves, like just the amount of joy and love that can come into our person and that can be sent out into the world, like that alone would be an enormous amount of medicine to have that wholeness and joy and love. So yeah, that's a good summary. Thanks for that. Thanks for who I am.
Message. Yeah, such a beautiful message. So could you share a little bit of plant medicine with us? I had mentioned that I was going to ask you to talk about 3 plants that you just feel are really potent for healing women.
Yeah, so this morning when I got, you know, your questions, I was like, okay, plants, okay, ladies, we don't have too much time. Who wants to come in, you know? And so it was curious to me who came, who wanted to be offered. And so for those who might be watching or listening that have been in classes with me or, you know, heard recorded classes with me, I'm going to talk about violet again. Because I just believe that violet is such a strong ally for women, especially in this time in the world, for some super obvious reasons, I feel like, but so that we can get our voice back. You know, violet has an affinity for the respiratory system and our throat, you know, with its expectorant qualities and demulcent, and it's cool and it's soothing and traditionally used, you know, for whooping cough and these sorts of things. But energetically, like we've got to say what we need to say. And so many of us are needing to find our voices. You know, I have so many women come and thyroid problems, you know, or so many women come and like their voices literally are not strong. They kind of in a whisper. There's one client that I have that like when she speaks, she barely even opens her mouth or her teeth. Her voice is somewhere in the back. Violet has been an ally for her in other ways, and eventually it's going to help her say what she needs to say. So I feel like women right now need Violet to find their voice. And a lot of women, I feel like, are afraid that if I say what I need to say, I'm just going to spew it, and it's going to hurt all these people, and there's going to be just collateral damage. And I don't want to destroy people or destroy my world. Or maybe some people do. But that's one thing that I think is so lovely about Violet is like she helps us say what we need to say, but she helps us do it at the right time and in the right way. That doesn't mean that people won't be upset or hurt, but it won't be because of your manner, or it won't be because of the way you chose to say it. So she's a plant we don't have to be afraid of in helping us to find our voice and let go of the fear. And also its connection to the heart and the womb, like to speak from those places. Often like this throat is constricted because there's something down deeper, that's needing to come up. And I had this experience with Violet where this was recently, and I was like, oh, we're starting to have a different conversation, Violet. And she showed up in in front of like my sacred space, my yoni. I don't know what words everyone's comfortable using. And she said to me, find this voice, speak from this voice. And I think like so many, I'm getting like chills when I say this, need to find that voice. And not just because of my connection with maybe sexual trauma and that sort of thing, but like the divine feminine, like from this place of knowing, we need to find that voice. Also, I think Violet's helpful as an ally for women because, at least in my experience, being raised in the South and being raised in the Christian tradition, but it may be true across the board, just being a woman, you are not allowed to be angry. Like that is not an emotion that you are allowed to express. But I think we could all agree that all humans experience anger, and women maybe even more so in some ways because of things that happen, to us or the way we're treated. But what we do is instead of like expressing anger the way we would think we express anger, like talking like this, or screaming or shouting, we start to cry and we're just like, and then people are like, oh, honey, are you okay? And you are so freaking mad. But everybody just thinks you're just sad. And they're like, oh, because like that's like an acceptable emotion for a woman to have, like to cry and to be sad. And then everybody's like, ooh, and you want to tell much? No, I can't. No, and you don't even know what's wrong sometimes. Yeah. And so I think that Violet is a great ally for women when we have anger, but it's being expressed as sadness. And that's really not getting the job done with like moving through what needs to be moved through. And so Violet can also help us begin to express our anger as anger. But again, like I said, in a way that is not vengeful or destructive, but a proper expression of anger. And then I'll say one last part about Violet. I feel like she's also an ally for women because as she helps us move out anger, and as she helps us move out grief in our wombs, in our hearts, just held wherever we're holding in our bodies. I mean, with Violet's connection with the lymphatic system and, the underground, who knows all the places we've got emotions tucked away, but she can go and find it for us. So she helps us express like those difficult emotions, sadness, grief, anger, others. She ends up giving us space to express and experience joy, which so many of us don't seem to have the capacity to experience or feel or express. And I don't know about some of those who may be listening, but having grown up in the Christian church, there's all this talk about, joy. It's a fruit of the Spirit, and you've got to walk in the Christian life and have joy, And I just sat and thought, I just am not feeling that. I don't even know what you mean by the word joy. I don't even know. And then I look around at the women that are sitting in the pews around me, and they don't look very joyful either. And so I'm thinking, how do we do that? And so the experience I had with Violet after working with her for years with myself, years, finding my voice, learning to express anger, to say, I'm angry right now. Are you okay? No, I'm not. I'm angry. And this is why I'm angry. Learning to do that, learning to speak with the voice from my root, these things. I had this experience. I passed Violet in a circle a couple of years ago. As I like to do that in my classes. We pass like a tincture and essence, and we sit and listen. And I'm expecting the usual, these usual things that I've worked with Violet. But suddenly I just wanted to giggle and like laugh. And I had this image of me and a person that I care so much about. And like we were like spinning in a circle, hugging with our heads back on this bright sunny day, just laughing. And I just felt so much joy and just elation. And I realized in that moment, like, that's how we think of Violet when we see those little plants around and children. Like, that's what we think of, but that's not often what we need it for initially. But what she does is she helps to clear out those emotions that have been stagnant and stuck and move them. And then we can have space to actually feel joy and experience it because we were too clogged up and stagnant before. And so we see like those energetic qualities that Violet helps us with. And then so many of us know its affinity for our wounds, our heart, our breast, our lymph. Like she just loves us. And so many of us have her growing in our yards and along our feet. And it's for a reason. We should try to make some honey and drink some tea and tincture and just eat her and like see where she takes us.
Yeah. So somebody who wanted to just start dabbling with this plant for the purposes that you're talking about, really finding her voice, would you recommend the flower versus the leaf versus tincture versus flower essence versus or having it on your yard, your
Yes.
table?
So I'm open to so many ways of working with plants. So when it comes to working with Violet in this way, I'm totally with how is she calling to you. So for me, when Violet first came, I sat in her. I didn't even know why she was there, what I was doing. I was just like, oh, look at all these violets in my yard. But I picked her and I made syrups and I made like candied violets. I just ate her. So that's how I started. And then I also used her as an essence, and the essence was incredibly important during healing from the sexual abuse to make me be able to say what I needed to say. And again, some of you have already heard me say this so many times, but I had like a ball. I think in traditional Chinese medicine, they call it plum pit right here. And it slowly was moving up like a true physical sensation, moving up so it was at the back of my throat. And that is definitely a specific indicator for Violet to like remove a plug. Like that physical ball you're feeling is holding what you need to say. And so I used the flower essence and it moved it up and I was able to speak. But then like when I talked about finding like that voice from our sacred spaces, our yoni, our root, that day, Violet was very specific and she wanted me to make honey. And she didn't say I could eat the honey, although I'm sure she let me eat the honey, but she wanted me to use the honey as like a massage or a covering for that space. And there's a lot of stuff with bees and honey, in our wombs. There's definitely connection there. So I just think when it comes to this particular plant and these actions, it's a safe, accessible plant. And so you can just see how she calls to you. But I use the flower and the leaf for this. I'm primarily drawn to the flower with this sort of work. And of course, I don't use the root for these things. Like it's more of an emetic and pretty strong. So I just primarily use the flower and I'll add in the leaves. And you can play with it. Like I said, even candied violets, just with her, spend time with her and see how you feel drawn to use her. It's almost like endless, infusions, and throw it in your bath and press the flowers. Like it's just like in the class with Embodied Herbalism, like just create a relationship with the plant. Draw it however you want to go and do it. Does that help? Is it too broad?
No, that's beautiful. That's very helpful. So what's your second plant that came to you today?
Okay. So I want to save the best for last in my mind, or the one that I haven't got to talk about much yet. So I'll move to blue vervain. So for blue vervain, I use the flowering tops, and I do use the tincture. Such a bitter herb, very acrid. So I definitely use the tincture with this plant. So blue vervain came to me when I needed it for postpartum depression. And I had already experienced postpartum depression in the past, and it was severe. Like I would say it probably bordered on postpartum psychosis. I was just clear-headed enough to not share too much information, get the medicine that I needed. So at the time I took Zoloft for a few months, and it was difficult. Like it got me over the hump, but a lot of side effects. So fast forward that, like, how many years forward would that be? Like 7 years forward. So I went through the miscarriages, no trouble. I had another baby, no trouble. But then my fifth child, after he was born, there was this one evening, and everything had gone, and I wasn't who I had been before, and I'd made life change, all these kinds of things. But I had this feeling one night, and I was like, oh, I know that feeling. That's part of depression, and I can't do that again. But by that point, I learned more about plants and food and all these sorts of things. I didn't want to take medicine again if I didn't have to. But I also knew I had to do something, because I had this feeling of like, I won't make it this time if I don't get on top of this. But I prayed. I was laying on the couch, like, is there a plant? And what came to my mind was blue vervain, which I had never worked with and didn't know anything about. And I my Matthew Wood book, and it didn't say anything about postpartum depression, but so many symptoms or physical symptoms I had, like I wasn't sweating, like so much that like if I was outside, I had to come in, like the overheating was that bad, so things like that. So I took it. I took 3 drops of blue vervain, just dissipated that emotion, just dissipated that feeling. I continued to take it for 3 or 4 days and then just quit because it was gone. And since I've given it to multiple women who come to me presenting a certain way with postpartum depression, and I do want to make this clear because I don't know if blue vervain would be as effective if a woman presented in a different way. So how it'll come is there's words that like they're shutting down, like the lights are going out, like fade to black, like they just need to lay down and shut it off. Like, but this idea, I just got to go down and it's just shutting off and I'm going down, this sort of thing. So this sense of overwhelm. And so we are, as women, we give birth, and postpartum depression is real and is probably more common than any of us can even imagine. And so to have a plant ally that can move us out of that dark space to where we can begin to I don't want to use the word productive because blue vervain, I'm going to talk about in a minute, but like be present to interact with ourselves and our new little one and our family and our world and live, like make it through and live, like is so just invaluable. So the other ways that blue vervain works in that way for women, because even without having a baby, what spins us into postpartum depression sometimes is already present there for a lot of us. So blue vervain is useful after like a great exertion. And so I remember when I was telling Matthew Wood, who was the one who introduced me to blue vervain, how I use it, he said to me, well, there's no greater exertion than birth. I was like, no, there's not that I can think of, except maybe moving. Like there's something like a physical exertion, And so after this great exertion, you're spent. And he talks about like weak below, like strong above, weak below. So like the digestive system and the reproductive system are spent and tired. But you have all this heart and passion, all these ideas that your root and your gut can't support and manifest, like what's in your heart and what's in your mind. So you have strong above, lots of ideas, lots of heart, passion, but weak below, like the reproductive system and the digestive system is tired with its bitter, acrid quality. It's so helpful with the digestion. And it gave me an appetite that was so noticeable. I was like ravenous after I took it, after having not been hungry at all. And appetites across the board, like libido. Like, some of y'all know, you're sitting there and your partner comes in and he's got that look or he says that thing or touches you that way. And honestly, you just cringe and you're just so tired. And you're like, please, God, no, I just can't, And like, you're just like, I don't even want them to like be in my space so I feel the energy that they're even thinking about it. Like that's how bad it can be sometimes, like with how low the libido is. So when I took blue vervain, I was just sitting on the couch one day, having this little one and then just experienced these postpartum symptoms. And I had this thought, which was quite an improvement. I could go for that. I can probably do it. So that was a good shift. So I feel like it opens up our appetite for life, which we've often lost in any form of depression. We've lost our appetite for life. So it increases like those things. But back to like the exertion part. So what happens is, and as women and in the expectations outside and inside, we have really high standards. And I don't think high standards are bad. I really don't. But what happens is at certain points in our lives, they're not reasonable, you know? So like at other points in your life, you may be able to like cook everything locally sourced and from scratch and puree all of this and, you know, make your own homemade laundry detergent and hang stuff out on the line and fix your hair. But sometimes in life, like having just had a baby, maybe you aren't going to be able to do that. You know, maybe you aren't going to be able to cook that way or just, but you want to, you know, and that's not bad. And so like these moms and even moms that don't have these sort of expectations, you know, we all have different ones that are just asking too much of us right now in this season, but I'm going to use cloth diapers, I'm going to nurse exclusively, I'm going to hang them on the line, and I'm going to do this. And well, you probably will in a few months. And so this idea of like, what is a reasonable standard for you right now? And I think that often for us as women, especially expectations from the outside, from the inside, from somewhere back in the past and all over, you know, the expectations that are being placed on us are not reasonable for certain seasons of our life. Blue vervain helps us say no. I'm not able to do that right now, and that's good. And my most recent experience with blue vervain that I never had before, but this would be a great ally for women too. I took her, I was offering her to a male client because they can do it too, like any great exertion, a move, a project at work, a really full semester with exams, anything. So we took it because he needed it. And I heard all of these voices. It was like my brain, this cloud dissipated and cleared. And there was like, so again, being raised in the Christian tradition, there's a Bible passage that says, we are surrounded with a great cloud of witnesses. That's what it says. And that's the feeling I had. There was this great cloud of witnesses. And they wouldn't like all I'm going to say, but like ancestors and angels and the divine, and I don't know, plants. I don't even know who all these witnesses were. And they were all saying to me, Amanda, you're doing such a good job. You're doing such a good job, Amanda. We're so proud of you. You don't need to do another thing. You're doing enough. And that meant a lot to me right now in this season of transition in my life and divorce and moving into a new home and changing things with my business and my children. They were just like, just cheering me on, like, you have done enough. We are so proud of you. This is excellent, the progress you've made. And so a lot of times that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing, I haven't done enough and I should be doing this. And so blue vervain helps to silence and quiet those voices and put in, I can do enough. And so for me, because it has an affinity for the neck, and it's been like traditionally used effectively for like epilepsy when it's starting there in our neck. When I start to feel that tension moving down my leg and through my shoulders, where it's like, if I move too quickly, everything is going to cinch and it's going to get stuck. I go get my blue vervain. And what I've come to know is you are not saying no to something. There's something you're needing to say no to, even if it's as simple as, I'm not going to do the dishes, or I'm not going to run that errand for you, or I'm not going to do that project. Like there's something I'm not saying no to. And so I think blue vervain is just an excellent ally for women to work through things that are very particular to women, especially with birth and our own expectations and standards, but also our ability to say no and also be more reasonable during certain seasons in our life of what we can and can't do, so that we don't end up being spent and exhausted and overwhelmed and completely shutting down. And
totally making me think of a 50-year-old woman so coming into this perimenopausal time, and it just finds so many women when they turn 50, they suddenly find their voice and their ability to say no to things, or no to their partners, or no to their children. And I think blue vervain is very cooling for hot flashes that might be.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I was getting ready to say. I'm so glad that you did that. Like, part of what happens when we haven't been doing that, saying no or preserving our energy or making our standards more reasonable, is that we can get really angry. And so what I've also found is like women of that age, I mean, we all can, but in my experience, women of like 50 to 60s, good grief. Like if they haven't been saying no before, if they haven't been being reasonable with themselves and others before, there's a lot of anger. And so blue vervain is definitely helpful with that, with its connection to the liver, gallbladder too, to help cool, like you said, cool it with hot flashes, cool it with anger, cool it with heat in the body. That's one of the ways that it helps us. And for me, where I wasn't sweating, opening the pores, and I did begin to sweat, and because I was holding a lot of heat and not processing it. And at that time, not when I discovered blue vervain for postpartum depression, but when I had it before, it was part of the picture. You know, I was like, how old was I then? 27, and having like really severe hot flashes at night. I had blue vervain then because it fit the picture then. It would most definitely have been an ally. So yeah, definitely heat in the body, hot flashes, anger. I think Matthew would talk about how like you eat like a piranha around your cycle, but I think it's interesting he chooses the word piranha. Because there's way more to that picture than we might know. And a local herbalist here, Robin McGee, she has the Earthwise School of Herbal Learning. She's in Anderson, South Carolina. She's wonderful. I love her and her personality. She's so funny. She's like, Amanda, the whole world needs blue vervain. Like just this whole like fanatical and high standards and angry and fight. You know, but that's when we're like really out of balance, you know? And so I think she's lovely. Robin might be right. Maybe we all need a blue vervain plant, you know, just, and they're really easy to grow just nearby. Have yourself a little tincture. We're starting to feel a little that way. You know, you get the drops. But for me, seriously, blue vervain, and I mean this, was a lifesaver. I really do not think I would be here without blue vervain. That's how strong of an ally she is for me. And I've seen her do it with multiple women since then. And they're just floored. Like these new moms, especially that call her, like, somebody said you did something, and then, and I'm like, tell me a little bit about it. And then it fits the picture, and then I give them the blue vervain. It's just extraordinary. It's amazing.
Oh, I love that. Well, just while you were talking, I just have to share that a hummingbird just came right up to me, sitting on my deck, and so she's checking out what you have to say.
I love it, and I love animal medicine. I'm going to have to give some thought to the hummingbird.
Yeah, well, Rocio Alarcon, who will also be at the Mid-Atlantic Women's Herbal Conference, she does a whole workshop in Ecuador about hummingbird medicine and how important it is. And in that workshop, they hang medallions. You hang your medallion, and the hummingbirds come and they charge that medallion with their medicine.
Oh, I love that.
It's really, really beautiful. It's an incredible video that
I'll have to look that up. Is it? I guess it's online. Like I could look on.
Yeah, we're working on putting that up for her because
good
challenge for her. So we're gonna be able to share some of these beautiful videos that she has.
Mm-hmm.
Work, yeah, and you'll be connecting with her when you come to.
Yeah.
So be sure to pay attention. So share with us the third plant that came to you.
Okay, so the third plant. Thank you for giving me time to talk about these. The third plant is holly, the American holly.
Oh. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to say lady's mantle because of alchemilla.
Oh, I love that you said that. Well, maybe some other time, but lady's mantle is definitely one of my allies. Most definitely. But holly was the one that wanted to come through this morning for women. So there's not enough holly medicine out there. I'm working on writing about her and recording and putting her out with the podcast. So for me, and for all of us, what holly does for women is quite a lot. I think that holly embodies really, oh my goodness, the divine love and especially the divine feminine. So what happened when I started my embodied herbalism classes was, you know how this goes. So you're going to teach about something, right? And then the universe is like, are you really now? Well, I'm so glad you are going to learn something about that. You know, like it takes you like a little farther. And so that's what happened with holly. So what holly is about is like truly the physical embodiment of divine love and the divine feminine. And what holly has said to me is, I want a body. I need a body. She's all about how does a human body express divine love? How does a human body express the divine feminine? So there's way too much to say about her in the little time that we have. So I'll just offer some little tidbits and hopefully it'll be what different women need to pick up on. So Part of what Holly has taught me is like she wants to teach women how to love, how to have divine love. And I don't mean just like you and I are friends. I mean divine, sensual, sexual love. And then what she's shown is I want to teach women, and then I want the women to turn to the men and like offer that to the men. Like she wants to create women who know how to love, how to embody the divine feminine, and then how to turn and give it. And so part of what she helps with energetically, because the plant, the berries are toxic. The leaves have been used in the past for like fresh, like young leaves, for various ailments, but you can't use the berries. I'm not aware of a use for the bark. Pretty much I just use the flower essence or sit with the plant. Like this isn't a plant that I can offer in a, use an infusion sort of way. It's not that kind of plant. But I would sit with her, or I would get a flower essence. And maybe for some of you, the young leaves, that you might want to make a tea. I've not really felt like I needed to do that. But what she began to teach me how to do is to see the other person, like my eyes open wider, like I see the divine in you and I love you. And I see you with all of your imperfections, and I do see them and I'm noticing them. And what they do is make me like love you more, and not like overlook them, but like I love you. And there were these moments where Holly's like, this is how the divine feels about you. The divine sees all of your details, all of your imperfections, all of your brokenness. The divine is totally aware of those things. And yet the divine just can't help but like expand around you and love you. And so then how do we embody it? How do we touch another person? How do we move? Like one of the things that Holly did for me, which was important for a lot of us, was she asked me the question, Amanda, how would you move if you only moved for yourself? There's nobody else here. There's nobody else here that, would find you attractive or would be turned on, or this isn't for anybody else. How would you move if it was just for you? And then she was like, I'll teach you how to dance. I'll teach you how to move your move the way you need to move it. Like some of us, we don't know how to move unless we're moving to give somebody else pleasure. But she's like, how would you move to feel pleasurable yourself, just to dance and move? And then it's not for selfish purposes. She's like, okay, now you're embodying that. Now, like, go and give it. So also the first words that Holly ever said to me, she took me completely off guard. I didn't have this on my mind at all. I don't even understand or know. The first words Holly said to me was, you can be juicy. And I saw this like pulsing red heart and vibrant blood, but she was talking about like sexually. And there's too much for that. And I'm guessing this is like a PG rated, video for the website. But like, she's teaching us how to be sensual and how to express it in our bodies. She's also excellent for old bodies. So in our culture, we value like everything being like tucked and tight and smooth and where it should be. But the fact of the matter is, like, if you lined all of us up, undressed, nothing's where it should be. Nothing's the right proportion. Everything's like crooked and out of place. And so Holly is like to embody that body and to love that body and learn how to love with that body, but also how to look at other bodies. That she's really big on this, like bodies that sag or that have wrinkles or that there's like not tone to, which is often older bodies, and like love them and like see them as sexual and sensual. And I do feel like in our culture, we really need to be reminded that as we get older, we can still, and we do still desire that type of physical intimacy, and we can still do it. And one of the things that Holly teaches is like how to be juicy, how to move, how to love your body and love that body, but also like how to connect with people from your heart. Because if you do it at the heart with divine love, like the physical aspects will come. They'll come. Like there's a connection that needs to happen here. So that's just like a little tidbit. Maybe it's too much, but I really wanted to come for like the embodiment, physical expression of divine love, divine feminine, loving our bodies, juiciness, sensuality. I don't, there's so much more to say about her, but I do think that as women, she has the ability to just make us love in this world and to help us experience love in our bodies and also give it to others in our bodies in ways that maybe some of us haven't like even imagined yet as being possible. And I especially love the aspect of her opening our eyes to the beauty and sensuality of older bodies. I just love that part.
Especially our own. I love that you're talking about sort of starting that love towards our own body, because again, you know, once we turn 50, we often start to put ourselves down physically. And
yeah. And I would just like to share, I'm not quite 50, I'm 39. And I would like to say that since meeting Holly, I do love myself more. Like, I haven't liked my body. I felt like it was, like, for me, too angular and like a lot of right angles, you know, and bony and this sort of thing. Because I'm like Vata and air, you know, these sorts of things. But then after my sixth child was born, I had always like, you know, don't let anybody get upset with me. I had always like gone right back to where I was before. Like, I always lost the weight right away because like nursing like sucks it out of me. And like I could go back into the size that I was in. Somehow everything went back into place. But after my sixth child was born, it was kind of unsurprising after six, and also not surprising with the circumstances of her birth. It was the first one where I was conscious of the abuse, and also we had moved and life had flipped upside down. There was a lot going on. Even though it was a great healthy pregnancy, I did have diastasis recti, you know, where like the abdominal muscles separate. And I did go back to the weight that I was before. It's almost impossible, like when they're nursing, it just, I don't know, it just sucks. But like nothing went back where it was before. And my belly didn't look the same, like for the first time. And again, let's all love each other. Don't be mad. Like it's, my belly didn't, I had one. And then like my thighs over the last couple of years have decided to like enlarge, you know? And so like I've gone from having certain things I didn't like to these other things that maybe I wouldn't either, right? I'm so glad Holly came when she did. It wasn't just Holly, it was also like the experiences she gave and the people that she gave. Like she draws things in, but like I mean, my body is not perfect. I don't want anybody necessarily to like see it and poster it up everywhere, but I see like the largeness, I see like the looseness, I see the disproportion, you know, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, like, I think I might kind of like it, and maybe someone else might like it too, and who says that it has to look a certain way, and I don't know, and the only place I can put that, honestly, is Holly, because there's nothing about the culture or society or anything else I've ever heard or seen that, you know, because I probably feel like, oh, I've got to get this back and I've got to tuck this in and I've got to put, you know, put everything back the way it was like 25 years ago. Like it's totally not going to happen. So I just, in my own experience, like I've never liked my body so much, but my body's never been so older and broken and not quite what it, so it's interesting, like at this point where maybe people would think there was like less to love about it, the way our culture works. It's the first time like, I like it. I'm okay with it. I like it.
Oh, beautiful. Well, on that note, I think we will end our session. I just wanted to give you one last little minute to talk a little bit about the class that you're going to teach at the Mid-Atlantic Women's Herbal Conference in September.
Yeah, so I'm going to be teaching a class on plants and sexual trauma. And in the class, I'll be presenting a group of plants, whomever decides they want to come. And I'll be presenting the ways that they can help us physically as we heal from trauma. It doesn't have to be sexual trauma, but that's sort of usually where my focus is, because certain physical symptoms do come with that. So we'll talk about physically how the plants can help us, but also, as you can tell by listening to me talk, also energetically, spiritually, how the plants can help us, how to use them, whether it's as essences or sitting with them. So I use like my own personal experience, but also case studies. I'll likely pass some essences, you know, and it's just a place where I have every intention of holding like safe, sacred space to offer the plants as medicine and to help women know that there is hope. Like, you know, I was told when I started to remember, someone said to me, you do know, like, this is just always going to be with you now, right? And I thought, actually, it's not always going to be with me, at least not in the form in which it currently is. Like, I had the intention to transform it and integrate it and to release it. And the idea of Lady's Mantle and Alchemillis, the little alchemist, to change it into something lovely and beautiful. And so that's my intention for the class, is to share plants, their physical helps, also their emotional and energetic helps in a gentle, safe way. I'm very careful in my classes. I don't do details and things. I try to take care and just it's good. And then give women hope that there are gentle but effective ways of being a little alchemist and changing, you know, what's been given. I think it's Mary Oliver that says, you know, I was given a box full of darkness, you know, but that she realized that even that was a gift. And so that's my desire with presenting these, is like to help women have the tools that they need, gentle but effective tools to move through the dark places, to come out on the other side of it, having transmuted and transformed things into something that is able to be light and to offer medicine for themselves and others if they choose. I really do believe in healing in this way, with this aspect, and in a remembering, and not a remembering where like you can see like the glue oozing through the cracks and like the piece of tape you used over that spot, but like a remembering where you're almost having to look and be like, is that even the same pot anymore? Yeah. Because like the way it's been remembered is actually like more beautiful. So, you know, we'll offer plants. I may pass them, just depending. I try to get a feel for the space and like who's there and what would be best to do. But I really want to hand women faithful allies for gathering themselves back up. And that's part of what Holly teaches. And that will be a class in the future, which is once we remember ourselves and put ourselves back together and we're kind of in a neutral space, now how do we like go and enjoy and, you know, get that vibrancy back. But so that's what I'm planning to do in the class.
Well, hopefully you bring at least these 3 that you talked about.
So. Yeah, maybe more. I don't know. There's so many.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I can hardly wait to have you join us, and I think it's going to be a wonderful weekend, and you're going to be such an important part of the alchemy of our weekend together in September. So thank you so much for your time today and your beautiful spirit, your earnestness, and your helping
my cat
do their remembering. Yeah, you're beautiful.
So. Well, thank you for talking to me and letting me talk, and for inviting me to come. I'm looking forward to it.